Welcome to the Life Optimizer podcast, where science meets everyday life. My name is Viktoriya, a Yale trained midwife passionate about holistic health and wellness. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're talking about unlocking the power of your menstrual cycle for you and your partner. Before we go on, I did want to ask you, did you know that only 27% of our viewers subscribe to the channel? I can't tell you how helpful it is if you subscribe. It really allows us to bring you great content and really amazing guests. And so just consider subscribing, and thank you so much for supporting the work. Let's go on. So today, again, we're talking about the menstrual cycle, about how to optimize your life around the menstrual cycle so that you perform better, you really support your mood and your hormones. On this podcast, we're going to be talking about hormones and how to optimize your hormones, how to work with your hormones. But before we do that, let's find out what's normal. A lot of times, normal isn't really clear. And so oftentimes symptoms happen through the month, and it's hard to know whether that's something that's normal or not. Have you ever felt like something is wrong with you, like your moods are all over the place or your mood is changing week to week? Do you feel like a completely different person from one week to the next? You're not crazy. It's just your hormones. Your hormones are changing, and therefore they affect everything about you. Did you ever know that your metabolism, even your cravings, and how you handle stress change from week to week on the span of your menstrual cycle? And so today we're going to be talking all about that. We have kind of been made to feel like our bodies are broken, like something's wrong. If our mood changes, then we need to fix that. Our mood should be stable. We should be able to function the same way all the time. We should be able to work out the same way all the time. And that something is wrong with us when we feel, a certain energy one week and then maybe way less energy the following week. We're made to feel like that's, something's wrong with us. Today, we're going to learn really what it means when our energy changes and why it does, and why does our mood change from week to week. So that's really exciting because I think it's empowering when we know ourselves. Did you know that 49% of women don't know or couldn't explain the menstrual cycle to just about their own menstrual cycle? 49%. So that's almost half of women. That's a big deal because, just knowing that you get a period every 4 weeks or so might make it feel like everything else that happens is out of your control. And so when you learn that, the things that are happening, what you're feeling, what you're going through is part of your natural flow of things, natural hormone cycles, it makes it easier to really prepare for life. So today, what are we talking about? Today, we're talking about ways to feel in control of your body. Today, we're talking about ways to make choices that support your well-being and ways to optimize your health and energy levels throughout your menstrual cycle, throughout the month. Today, we're going to talk about the hormonal fluctuations, the menstrual cycle, what happens, and really learn what is normal and how to support it. As an aside, if you are on a hormonal birth control pill or on a hormonal method of birth control, these fluctuations are not going to apply to you while you're on the pill. It doesn't mean that they're not going to happen when you're off, but hormonal birth control doesn't allow for these natural fluctuations to happen. So just know this is a really good thing to know when you're off of a hormonal method. This is something to know and be aware of. Okay, so from the highs of peak confidence to the moments where you just want to curl up on the couch, really understanding why that happens to us is really cool. Your hormones are guiding every step of that process. And when you learn to work with them instead of against them, life becomes smoother, more productive, and even your relationships can get better. And we'll talk about that. And for the men, I know that probably most of the men have already clicked off, but this is a very important topic as well. If you want to learn how to, know your partner, how to know your wife, how to know your girlfriend, how to understand why her moods change and how you can be supportive, I'm going to include tidbits for you as well as you go on, so that you can really improve your relationship with your partner, really get to know her better. Okay, so let's talk about it. The menstrual cycle in general is viewed as a 28-day cycle, which of course we're going to be generalizing. We're not going to say that every single woman on the planet has a 28-day cycle. That's not possible, but we're going to generalize to say more or less, plus or minus a few days, so anywhere from 25 to 32 days is the length of a menstrual cycle. And we're going to assume that things are normal today, that you don't have any hormonal issues overall. And then we're going to talk about the things that can interfere or affect your cycle. And so generally speaking, it is at 28 days, with ovulation happening right around the middle of your cycle, right around day 14ish. So this is the amount of time that it takes for you to mature an egg, release an egg, and then potentially have a pregnancy. And if you're not pregnant, that egg dies if it's not fertilized, and your body resets to release another egg every about 28 days. Okay, so that's your cycle. Your cycle, the easy way to understand your cycle is that it's kind of like the four seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall. So winter is basically like your menstrual phase where you're on your period. Then spring is your follicular phase. Then summer comes, which is ovulation. And then fall comes, which is your luteal phase. And we're going to talk all about it. Okay, so let's talk about the first phase. Phase one is your menstrual phase. Generally, you're on your period for anywhere between the first day of your cycle. So the first day of your cycle is considered the first day of your period. And generally, it's from day 1 to 5, 6, or 7, depending if you have kind of longer periods or shorter. So from the first bleed to the last day of bleeding. So this is your winter. Okay, so it feels something like this. It's day 1 of your cycle. You wake up and you feel like you were hit by a truck. Your partner looks at you and says, "Hey, what's for breakfast?" And you don't even want to answer, right? You're drained, you're a little bit moody, and you're craving comfort. So what's happening with your hormones? During your menstrual phase, or the time that you're on your period, your estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest. Your body is in recovery mode, okay? So what's happening with your mood? You have lower energy. You really have more need for introspection. You tend to be in your head more. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. During your period, you're more in your head, less social. So possibly things that you can do to support yourself is to find activities that really match up your energy level, that feel good and fit your energy level for the time. Try to get lots of sleep and rest. This is not a time to pull all-nighters, okay? Possibly reduce social commitments. You may not feel like going out, and that's really normal. So knowing that you might not feel like going out during your period, right? That's a normal feeling. Your sex drive. Well, generally, you're not really feeling flirty unless you're one of those women that gets a small spike of hormones as they're on their period. Generally, you're not really feeling in the mood. So how do you support your body? Focus on warm, iron-rich foods and foods to help you replenish the nutrients that you're losing through menstruation, okay? The best foods to include will be whole foods, leafy greens, nuts, and seeds. Some examples of this: warm bone broth is really good, grass-fed red meats, lentils, spinach, beets, and healthy fats like avocado and salmon. So this isn't meant to be an overwhelming list. All I'm doing is just highlighting some of the micronutrients that we need. But the push really is to have a whole foods diet, to stay away from processed food and to really get foods that are fruits, veggies, lean meats, good fats, like we talked about in our previous episode, to really help support your body through this stage. And then each part of the menstrual cycle, you're going to focus a little bit more on some of the micronutrients. And you're going to notice that some fruits and vegetables are going to give you all the micronutrients. So just making sure that you're eating those through the cycle is going to be great. And you'll see as I highlight them. So what are the micronutrients that we're focusing on during the menstrual phase? We're focusing on iron, we're focusing on magnesium, vitamin C, and omega-3s. And men, so when your girl is on her period, this is not a time for deep discussion. She might be a little bit more moody. Don't take her moodiness personally, and really offer support, be patient, and really even a thoughtful gesture like making her a cup of tea is going to go a long way. Okay. Okay, moving on to phase 2. That's the follicular phase. So this is around days 6 to 12 of your cycle. This phase begins when the bleeding stops and the uterus is really beginning to prepare for pregnancy. Okay, so this is kind of how it feels like. You wake up on day 6 and suddenly you feel a little different. It's kind of like the first day of spring. The sun is out, the fog has lifted, you have more energy, you feel like texting people back, actually, and you start brainstorming new projects, new activities. Your partner notices that you're acting a little bit different. Like, who is that girl? She's like, has more energy all of a sudden. So, what's happening with your hormones? Estrogen is rising, making you feel more energetic and social. And estrogen and progesterone, an easy way to remember these hormones is estrogen is your hype girl. She wants to go out, she wants to be social, she's giving you lots of energy. And progesterone, she's your chill girl. She wants to sit on the couch and eat snacks. So during this follicular phase, estrogen is rising and you're becoming more social. So your mood, your confidence is growing, your creativity is spiking, and often you feel like getting work done. Your mind is up for complex tasks and maybe projects. So, very interestingly, it's easiest for us to resolve conflict from days 2 to days 12 of your cycle. So, that beginning stage. I'm not saying you can't resolve conflict all the time. Obviously, you can, but our hormones are in a place where it's easier for us to deal with and resolve conflict. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so what's happening with your sex drive? So your sex drive is creeping back up. Your libido is highest between days 10 to 15. That's typically, we're going to talk about ovulation. Your body's wanting you to make a baby. So your libido is highest at that time. So what can you do during the follicular phase? Support your body. And what are you supporting? You're supporting the estrogen production and you're supporting your energy. So this is the time for fresh foods, leafy greens, lean proteins again, more healthy fats. So you're continuing that to grow your energy. Start eating fermented foods if you weren't feeling like it when you were on your period, something like sauerkraut. That's going to support your gut health for better estrogen metabolism. This is also the best time to consume pumpkin seeds and flax seeds to really help estrogen metabolism. So, what are the micronutrients that we're trying to consume? Iron, magnesium, and then again, we said protein and good fats like omega-3s. So, men, what are you doing during this phase of her cycle, during the follicular phase of her cycle? So this is a great time to plan fun activities. Your partner is in a high energy social mood. So maybe like a date night, maybe an adventure, maybe doing a new project. So this is a great time to suggest that or plan that. Okay. What about the ovulatory phase? So that's the time where ovulation occurs. And generally, ovulation happens over a 24-hour period. So it's 24 hours, the egg is released and has 24 hours to be fertilized, or otherwise it dies. So egg lives for 24 hours. In general, healthy sperm live for 5 days. So you can get pregnant anytime around that ovulation, but the egg will live only for 24 hours. So it needs sperm around to be fertilized at that time. So generally, again, egg is released for 24 hours, but it feels like that ovulatory phase lasts for about 3 to 4 days. Your hormones are elevated, and so that this phase or feelings of it lasts a little bit longer than that 24-hour window. So how do you feel when you're ovulating? It feels like, when you're out with friends, you're social, you feel unstoppable, you're making everybody laugh, you radiate confidence, your partner is looking at you like you're the most attractive person in the world. You feel magnetic, right? You feel amazing. What's happening with your hormones? Well, it's because your hormones are doing cool things. So your estrogen peaks, and the peak in estrogen triggers ovulation, triggers that egg to be released. So I haven't really talked about testosterone much, but women do need testosterone and women make testosterone. So let's talk about it. So to understand the hormones of your cycle, if we think about the three major hormones, estrogen is your hype girl. She wants you to go out, be social, energetic. Progesterone is your I want to stay home and chill and eat snacks girl. Testosterone is your protective big brother, the one that always has your back, that hypes you up when you need confidence, pushes you to go after what you want. Okay, so testosterone is lowest at the beginning of your cycle during your period. And then as your period progresses, testosterone starts to increase. And during ovulation, you get a small peak in testosterone and then it starts to drop off. The minerals to remember or that are needed to produce testosterone are zinc and magnesium. These are essential minerals to help your body produce testosterone. So during ovulation, you're feeling strong. Your mood is flirty, social, outgoing. This is a time where you generally will feel extroverted. It's ideal for going out. You're motivated for important meetings, important projects, and new tasks. Did you know that the best time to do hard workouts or to do like a personal record type of workout in the gym is during ovulation? Yeah. And those high hormones are the thing that's helping you do that. Okay, what about your sex drive during ovulation? I am sure that you have guessed it. Your sex drive is through the roof. Naturally, your body's trying to make you have a baby. So the high hormones are making you want to be intimate. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about cervical mucus, vaginal discharge, and basal body temperature. So cervical mucus changes throughout your cycle. So in the beginning, you have the bleeding, then the cervical mucus is kind of white and more thicker. And during ovulation, your cervical mucus really looks like egg whites, like stringy, thin, clear egg whites. And that's also another sign that ovulation is happening. And your basal body temperature, so that's the temperature that, if you were to take your temperature first thing in the morning before getting out of bed, your basal body temperature increases by about 0.4 degrees, increases after ovulation happens. And so then your basal body temperature or your baseline temperature that your body's, in is constantly elevated until you either get pregnant or you have your next period. This is all normal. That discharge is normal. A lot of folks will be worried about, I have more discharge. That's really normal, especially during the time of ovulation. And then as the cycle progresses, your cervical mucus and vaginal discharge changes to like a yellow sticky discharge. So just know that the cervical mucus is a normal thing. How can you support your body during ovulation? You want to focus on two things: antioxidants and detox support. Okay. So things like zinc rich foods, like pumpkin seeds, grass fed beef to support egg health and hormone balance. Eat plenty of cruciferous vegetables. So these are your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, your broccolini. So all of that helps your liver detox estrogen. So now that estrogen has peaked, it's going to be decreasing and your body will be removing that estrogen. Okay. And you want to help your liver do that. So what are the micronutrients again? We talked about zinc, choline that's found in eggs, vitamin C, E, folate is really important. And for men, what are you doing when she's ovulating? This is the best time to have deep conversations. When a woman is ovulating is the best time to have deep conversations. So, if there's a tough topic to discuss, finances, future plans, anything sensitive, this is the perfect time to do that. And she'll be more receptive. Isn't that interesting? And also enjoy the extra affection and connection with her as well. So the next phase is the luteal phase. Generally, the luteal phase is about day 17 to day 28 of your cycle. It's the end part of your cycle, the last week or so of your cycle. And this happens if the egg is not fertilized. So if you don't get pregnant, egg is not fertilized, then you go into this luteal phase. And the uterus is preparing to shed its lining during this phase so that it can reset. So what does this feel like? A few days after ovulation, you still feel good, but something has shifted. You're a little more sensitive. That thing your partner shared with you last week that you didn't care about, now it really rubs you the wrong way. You might be doing okay, but a week after ovulation, you might find yourself crying over a TikTok of a dog reunion and wondering why the world is so cruel. That's how quickly that can happen. And why is that happening? Why is that shift just all of a sudden you wake up and that happens? Well, your hormones are changing. You guessed it, right? Your hormones are changing. So progesterone is rising and then it drops if no pregnancy occurs, and estrogen is lower as well. So progesterone is the dominant hormone in this phase. So if you've ever asked yourself, why was it that 2 days ago I went to the gym and was a gym beast, and today I am Netflix and chill girl, what has happened? Really, this is the answer, right? It's a different phase of your cycle, even though it's only been a couple days. So remember, the best time to do intense workouts is after your period or during ovulation, right? And the worst time for intense workouts is in this luteal phase, is right before your period starts. Your body's just not there, right? Hormonally. So what are you going to do? You're going to prioritize calm and stress reduction 1 week before your period to decrease cortisol, so that progesterone can be made. Cortisol, high cortisol, inhibits progesterone being made. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So you want to decrease those cortisol levels so that progesterone can be made and you can go through this phase of your cycle gently, I should say. So what's happening with your mood? Early in the luteal phase, your mood is pretty stable, pretty steady. And then late in the luteal phase, some people might experience symptoms of PMS, like premenstrual syndrome symptoms, more moodiness, things like that. So that's something to definitely consider. What's happening with your sex drive in the luteal phase? Well, your sex drive is moderate at first. So right after ovulation, it kind of stays moderate. And then your sex drive may drop as you approach the end of your cycle and your period. So how are you going to support your body? Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever gotten an intense feeling like you have to have chocolate right before your period, a couple of days before your period? Yeah, I know, me too. That's your body telling you that it wants magnesium. Your body's talking to you. Your hormones are talking to you. So chocolate, dark chocolate, is rich in magnesium, and your body's giving you that craving because probably you're low in magnesium. Have you ever felt exhausted and bloated a couple of days before your period? That's, again, your body talking to you. So you want to eat more magnesium rich foods like dark chocolate, nuts, leafy greens, and bananas the week before your period. This will also help reduce those mood swings and those PMS symptoms. What else can you do? You want to eat more foods that have vitamin B6 in them. So what is that? Back to sunflower seeds, bananas, turkey, salmon, to help progesterone production. Sunflower seeds and sesame seeds are particularly beneficial in this phase. And you're really eating about 2 tablespoons a day, something like that. So this isn't huge amounts. What about things like weight gain? Have you ever felt like you gain a couple pounds right before your period and you're like, I'm eating the same. I feel like not a lot has changed, but I'm gaining weight. Well, here's the trick, right? Super important to really know that towards the end of your cycle, you actually become a little bit insulin resistant. And let's talk about why that is, okay? So if you want to lose weight or prevent yourself from gaining weight during that last week of your cycle, right before your period starts, during that luteal phase, you really want to be aware of the types of carbohydrates that you're eating, okay? So insulin sensitivity is lowest during this phase. What does that mean? That means that insulin resistance tends to increase, especially towards the end of that last week. And so during the luteal phase, your body is more prone to storing fat. Yeah. And it handles carbs a little bit differently. It's a little bit less efficient at handling the carbs because of your higher progesterone levels, which again leads to that slight insulin resistance. So, what are the things to eat? If I can't eat carbs, you can't eat carbs. You can't eat carbs. Just focus on fiber rich vegetables, leafy greens, and complex carbohydrates, right? Like sweet potatoes, quinoa, legumes, and avoid refined carbs, things like white bread and sugar, and really focus on fiber to really give you stable energy, really improve or help with your gut health, and have stable blood glucose levels. So eat smaller meals during this time, during the last week of your cycle. Focus on balanced meals throughout the day to prevent cravings and to really help with energy regulation, okay? And this is not the time to be fasting. So that last week of your cycle is not the time to be fasting. What are the micronutrients that we're wanting? We want magnesium. We talked about that chocolate, B6, calcium, and vitamin C, right? And men, be extra patient when your partner is in the luteal phase, approaching her period. Offer help without being asked, right? A simple, hey, I got dinner tonight, goes a long way. So that's really something that you can do to know, hey, let me be more helpful. There are some things that can shift your cycle or affect ovulation and affect your periods. Really, there are 7 big things, like the big 7, that can shift your menstrual cycle and ovulation. stress, diet, sleep disruptions, overtraining or overexercising, toxin exposure, pregnancy, breastfeeding, and the postpartum period, and then perimenopause and menopause. Okay. And we're going to talk about all of them. So, stress. Remember how I said cortisol inhibits or disrupts your production of progesterone? So, this is really important because cortisol and progesterone, when they're made, they're pulling from the same precursor. And so, if cortisol is high, it's just, if stress is high, I should say, cortisol is going to be made and it's going to pull from the precursors, not allowing progesterone to be made in as high of an amount. One more thing to think about when it comes to your hormones is that testosterone decreases when cortisol needs to be made. Not only is progesterone made from the same precursors, testosterone is also made from the same precursors. And so it is harder for your body to make testosterone in times of stress and in times of poor sleep. So, quality sleep and relaxation are critical for maintaining healthy testosterone levels, and cortisol or stress or your stress hormone suppresses testosterone production. And so, really, that will disrupt your ovulation. Your cycle might still be regular, but when you ovulate might shift. So you might still be having a period every 4 weeks, but you notice, or maybe you don't notice, but you might ovulate really early in the cycle. As soon as your body can releases an egg, or you might ovulate really late in the cycle because it's taking your body so long to make that progesterone, and you're ovulating instead of day 14, you're ovulating day 21 of your cycle. And then if you're not pregnant at that point, quickly you have a period. Okay. And so stress can really affect your cycles, shift when you ovulate. So that's really important. Your diet plays a huge role in your cycle as well. Nutrient deficiencies impact hormone balance. As we talked about, each part of the cycle requires minerals, nutrients, fats, proteins to really help all of your hormones be made. And so that's something to think about and to consider. And so, strict dieting or under eating can stop your cycles altogether. Severe under eating and malnutrition can stop your cycles altogether or can shift your cycles. So just be aware that that really plays a huge role. And if you're not consuming enough calories or the right nutrients, your body feels stressed. And for that reason, it's really not feeling like it could support a pregnancy, right? Every time you ovulate, your body has to say, I think this body can support a pregnancy. I have all the nutrients, I have all the minerals, I'm not stressed, I'm feeling good. And so if you're not giving it enough nutrients, that's something that could really affect how your cycle is or when you ovulate. Sleep disruptions are, again, play a huge role in your cycle. Did you know that poor sleep lowers progesterone, right? So super important, again, to get your sleep. We talked about that in our other episodes. So really important to get your sleep, to get regular sleep, to synchronize your circadian rhythm with, your daily activities to really help support your cycle as well. Um, and then what about overtraining or overexercise? So when you're overtraining and really doing hard workouts, let's say 5 days a week, you're doing really, really hard, maybe high intensity training, you're not really giving your body that rest during your menstrual phase, not really giving your body that rest in that luteal phase. Your body can feel stressed. Especially, I have patients who, if they're working out every day, their cycle can completely stop and they become amenorrheic without a birth control pill, without anything else. Their body kind of like shuts down their ovaries, shuts down ovulation altogether. And so you don't, you want to pay attention to what your body's doing and where you are in your cycle and train accordingly. There are really good times where our hormones are high, where really we could push it at the gym. And then other times, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, you go to the gym, you feel like, 3 days ago, I just did all that work. And today I don't even feel like lifting a weight. I am just like, my legs feel heavy, my arms everything feels heavy, right? Pay attention to where you are in your cycle. Okay, toxin exposure. Unfortunately, everything that we're surrounded by can have estrogen hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors in them that can affect estrogen levels and really affect your cycle as well. And like I talked about before, the other thing is breastfeeding. When you're breastfeeding, your cycles are different. In your postpartum period, your cycles are different. If you're breastfeeding, in that time, or if you're not breastfeeding. Either way, your cycles are different. And obviously, during pregnancy, right? You don't have a period usually. Some women still bleed, and that's a whole different day and a different topic. Okay, so there's something else, right? That seventh thing is perimenopause and menopause that really can also shift your cycles. And you can notice little tiny changes in your cycle as you approach your late 30s, early 40s, and then as you approach menopause, which is around 51 or 52 years old. But through that length of time, which is a really long length of time, your cycles can shift little by little. So here are some cues or clues for you so that you know, hey, this might be happening to me already or right now. Okay. So if you notice that your cycles are shorter and you have heavier bleeding during your periods, you might be in early perimenopause. So in your late 30s or 40s, your cycles tend to become shorter and you have heavier periods. What about if you're having longer cycles? If you're having longer cycles or skipped periods, you might be experiencing later perimenopause. Overall progesterone production is dropping, and you might be experiencing that. What about if you feel if you're having more premenstrual cycle symptoms, more mood swings? You are likely experiencing estrogen progesterone imbalance. And you can do so much to really help your body through this. Really focus on your diet. We talked about that today. Focus on your diet. Get adequate sleep, really focus on your sleep, making sure that you're getting the amount of sleep that you need, right? That 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, to really help regulate your mood and regulate your hormones in this way. This is a huge deal for our hormones, right? Helping your body relax in times of stress is another thing that you can do. So we can't get rid of stress. That's not a thing, right? We live in a world, you step outside, you can be stressed at any point. So we can't get rid of stress, but really being aware of the things that are stressing us out and taking a couple deep breaths, knowing that, hey, I'm not going to be able to deal with stress as well in that luteal phase. I know that about myself. And so I'm going to give more time for rest. Maybe I'm going to do less projects. I'm going to take less on in volunteer work and extracurricular activities. Maybe I will change my workouts a little bit so that my body doesn't feel as stressed, so that during that time I can decrease those mood swings and those PMS symptoms. Okay. And of course, there are supplements that you can take. There are herbs that are out there that you can take to help. But these things that I'm talking about here today are free, right? They don't require you to make any kind of investment, just an investment in yourself and in awareness, and then taking the necessary steps, and one little step at a time. I always talk about that. No, you're not going to be able to walk away from this episode and fix your sleep, fix your diet, fix everything. Start with one thing. One thing. That's it. And then little by little build on. You don't need this to be overwhelming. I know we live in an overwhelmed world. And so doing one thing, maybe going to sleep 15 minutes earlier tonight, or maybe eating more nuts as you snack, or sprinkling some nuts and seeds onto your salad that you're having. Things like that. Simple, easy things that you can do to support your body. Because again, stress makes your body feels like you're overdoing it, and it changes the way that your hormones are made. It changes that progesterone production. And so structuring our life to support our hormones, our body, our mood, and our energy, we're going to just all feel better. Okay. So by embracing our cycles, natural ebbs and flows, we can really create a balance, deepen our relationships even, and optimize our overall well-being. And for the men listening, understanding her cycle is really, really good. But the big thing is taking the next step and helping to support her in her cycle, in the different phases of the cycle that she's in, right? Men tend to have a 24-hour cycle of their hormones. And so, your hormones are released on a 24-hour cycle. And for women, it's a long stretch of about a month, where our cycle really changes a lot of things about our physiology. Okay. So, Life Optimizer Challenge. As you go through your next cycle, when you start your period, let that be your reminder. See if you can pay attention and identify some of the things that we talked about today. Identify the changes in your energy, the changes in your mood, how you're feeling, and just get to know your body and what your body is naturally doing. Okay. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what stood out to you or what you notice as you're going through your cycle, the things that you're noticing that you're like, I never thought that this was cycle related. And now, like, I definitely noticed this thing. Tell me what you're doing to support your body. That's really interesting as well. This is not an extensive list that I went through. I would love to hear in the comments about what you're doing to support your body. And maybe share this episode with a friend and talk about, the stuff that you found interesting or compelling or something that really surprised you. Remember, tiny changes lead to a whole new you. And I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.